Well, now, stakeholders in the private sector are calling on the government to cut back on planned borrowing for the next financial year if it seeks to help create a favorable operating environment for businesses. The government plans to source 570 billion shillings from the domestic market, a figure the private sector says is too large and will crowd them out. The private sector is also calling for a predictable tax structure. Gov't Wachira spoke to some players in the private sector to get their sentiments ahead of the Thursday budget.
When Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani tables the 3.3 trillion shillings expenditure plan on Thursday this week, the budget will be having a financing gap of 846 billion shillings. It is this gap which the government plans to fill by sourcing at least 570 billion shillings from the domestic market, something which is evoking concern amongst business players.
If government is going to continue borrowing domestically, then we expect that there will be a credit crunch. There will definitely be a credit crunch. Currently, our total debt as a share of our GDP is at 70%. 70% of our GDP, about $107 billion. That's the amount of our GDP. 70% of it is debt. Are we together? Yes. So out of that debt, 48% is domestic borrowing.
The private sector also want a more predictable tax structure in a bid to catalyze investment. What exists presently with taxes changing from one year to another is creating significant unpredictability and inability to plan business actions.
Our tax structure is it's a disincentive to exporters. We saw from the World Bank report in December, only 6% of firms, manufacturing firms, export. Only 6%. That is woefully low. Yeah. And for most of them, if you ask them, it's just too much hassle. Your VAT refunds, your KRA locking your trailers and all these. It is so complicated.
Small business operators are also calling upon the National Treasury to consider measures which will scale down the cost of doing business.
Maisha siku hizi imekuwa ngumu sana. Hasa sisi watu wa bodaboda, watu wa chini namna hii, tunateseka sana. Bei ya mafuta iko juu, tunanunua lita moja kwa 150.
Vyakula kila kitu, especially the needs zenye ziko muhimu sana, kama chakula cha kawaida kama ugali, maziwa, sukari, imekuwa ghali sana mpaka hata hatuwezi weza kabisa.
According to data from the National Bureau of Statistics, 3 out of every 5 small and medium-sized businesses never get to celebrate their 5th birthday. This category of businesses will be closely monitoring the budget on Thursday to identify what measures, if any, are provided for to boost their sustainability. Gov't Wachira, NTV.